coming. My name is Henrik Coleman, I'm curator of the Royal Cash Collection, which is being kept secret and away from everybody else here in this warehouse, which is the West Indian warehouse. And for many reasons, the collection is closed and the warehouse is not accessible to the public on normal terms, but you bought your way in. That's the way to do it. We made an arrangement and you paid. Yeah. I'm not sure really why it is so difficult for the Danes to kind of grasp their history, but they have a kind of fairy tale idea about how it should be. So the most famous statue is the Little Mermaid, which is related to Hans Christian Andersen. Did you see that? Very, very little, tiny mermaid. Yeah. But there's another story also. And the story about slavery is related to this house in very many ways. And I think that one reason why this place is closed is because Danes don't want to talk about it. It's not because they care about slavery at all. We know that from the discussions that have been going on in the press. It's like, it's long ago. It doesn't matter. They're not here, it's in the past. But they forget about Greenland completely, which we still own. And that's the real problem for them. What is Denmark without Greenland? We are nothing. But we turn it the other way around saying, what would Greenlanders do without the help coming from the Danes? They would be lost, wouldn't they? No, they wouldn't. But this house is related to slavery because this is the West Indian warehouse, and the West Indian Trading Company had their main CEO office at the top of the building, and we're going there soon. And that's one reason for this is a difficult place, because if it's open, like you will see it as open, I could go show and tell the Danish public about that part of the history and what those guys who sat in that room, what they were doing. And that's a difficult story for the Danes. But it's like, well, but if I have people coming from the US Virgin Islands, this is not just a difficult history. This is their present. This is really something. The reason for them coming from the US Virgin Islands is because some guys in that room up there decided for their forefathers to be transported from Africa to the Caribbean. So that's another story. Anyone from the Caribbean here? No, but you're from the US. Do you know how you treat the US Virgin Islands? We have a problem with Greenland, but you have a problem with the US Virgin Islands. They're treated like a colony. They cannot vote for presidency. They have a representative in Congress that can listen, but they cannot vote.
And then there's the whole aspect of, well, the archives are in Denmark.
Oh yeah, the archives are in
And then education is US education, right? So it's not, they're not being told about their own history.
Yeah, that's really strange for me to think about, because I know that America, as after the Second World War, one of the big things they were talking about, Roosevelt was talking about how colonialism must end at the end of the Second World War. That must be it. That must be enough. One World War and a second one, which were both colonial wars. The US said this kind of thinking must end now, in 1945. And that is when the Danes found out that they had a problem with Greenland, because it was a colony and said to be a colony still. But the US is still treating the US Virgin Islands in a different manner. I don't know if it really is the same, but it could be a bit like they're treating the indigenous people in their kind of territories where they keep. I don't know if it's really the same, but it's kind of.
I don't know for the Virgin Islands, but I do know like closer areas such as like Puerto Rico, which the U.S. owns. It's the exact same issue where even though they're much closer than the Virgin Islands, they're not allowed to vote. They're not allowed to have any say, even though they're pretty much owned by the U.S. Which,
I mean, in American Samoa, we literally put our trash there. Like we just offer our trash in American Samoa. Can't vote.
I've got an uncle who lives in the Virgin Islands, and he mentions that pretty much they're treated like they don't exist.
Right.
They get no relief or help in the event of disasters because it's right in the hurricane area. So they pretty much just, he lives in squalor because there's literally no other choice.
So they're actually only on the agenda when there's a disaster. And you cannot really escape it anymore. Okay, so many people died, then you have to say something, but on the everyday basis, it's like gone. Yeah. But I noticed that a lot of presidents, when they leave office, they go on vacation. Where do they go? They go to the US Virgin Islands because some rich people they know have very big houses there and they can cruise around and dive in the coral sea. Things like that.
And the Danes go visit the old plantation.
Yeah, yeah.
And take photos and are happy when they see the Danish colonial culture, right?
Yeah. And just to show you a little bit about how strange this house is in relation to that history of the US Virgin Islands, which is thousands of miles away from here. I can show you something. So if you look down here on that shelf, the bottom shelf here, this is what I found in the underground, just outside the house, just outside the entrance.
You personally found
Yeah, I found it. Because sometimes they dig up for any kind of reason, they dig up the area around there. Now they're digging up the area because they're building a new main building for the Maersk company. Do you know the Maersk company? Have you told them about it?
No.
It's the biggest shipping company in the world. It's bigger than Lloyd's. It's the biggest, and they have this the expertise of sailing the seas and earning money from that comes from colonial history. So they know it's like 400 or 500 years of history where we have been sailing the seas in Denmark, and knowing how to do that knowledge is concentrated in the Maersk company right next door to this house. And they're building a new main sea, and they're digging up the ground to build a new building there. And I told them before they started, be aware you might find things like pieces of porcelain with blue decorations on. Yeah, sure. So they started, and the archaeologists arrived, and they found so many things that now they've stopped the building process because this is a very interesting area for them. So there's a long process of stopping it for a year or two. The Maersk company will never be stopped. I don't think they will manage, but the archaeologists, funny guys walking around finding small things in the ground, are trying to stop the Maersk company from building. Good luck.
I can maybe mention, just because we talked about the line of divinity and the sort of idea of divine right of rule and so on for the absolutist kings, because the line that used to be the sort of line of infinity leading from the church through the royal square to infinity is now blocked by an opera house that was funded by Maersk Machinery.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just to tell you, his position in Danish.
Yeah, they're
power
the only,
hierarchies.
we pay a lot of taxes in Denmark, I'm sure you know about that. But the Maersk company is the only company in Denmark that decides for themselves how much they want to pay, which is not very much. Nothing in comparison to what it was. But what I want, these blue things there, these pieces of porcelain that are dug up of the ground here, alongside with all the bones, they are from the layer in the earth which is 1700s, which is the same period from where this house is from. It was built around 1780. And when I found these pieces of porcelain, I said to those who lead the National Museum, the National Art Museum, where I'm acquainted with, say, there's something coming out of the ground. Perhaps we should take care and phone our colleagues on the other side of the street. And my boss says, no, you don't do that. But I have to, it's like archaeology might be interesting. No, you don't do that because then the work that is going on there could stop. So for several months, I took things out of the ground and without saying it to anybody and not daring to call, but then I finally decided to do so anyway, against my my bosses, and the archaeologists said, okay, we're going to take a look. And they could say, all the bones are, I'm afraid they're only animals, no human remains. I had hoped that there would be like some dead people in the ground. But it's donkeys. It's donkeys that worked in the house, because back then they had household animals inside the house to help them carry the goods that they were storing here. So they should not carry them all themselves, they would have donkeys here. And when they died, they just threw them out the window and they just fell on the ground. And then the pottery or the porcelain there, they said, yes, it is definitely 1700s, around 1800, but it's only garbage. It doesn't matter. So continue the work, and everybody was happy, but I knew something they didn't know. I knew these pieces of porcelain, they are coming out of the ground on the US Virgin Islands when they have this heavy rain, because the rain ponders down and the earth is kind of being mixed up with what is in the ground. So the rain is digging up their archaeology. It comes out of the ground when it rains. And in the US Virgin Islands, this is not garbage. This is their archaeology, and it is their memory of a broken past. There is not a single unbroken item. It's cups and whatever, broken, always broken. And if these things were of value here, you would have archaeologists coming here and trying to put it together. Okay, we cannot make the full plate, but we can almost. That is the mentality of us, like us Westerners. We want the complete history. But in the US Virgin Islands, they say, no, we don't do that. Our history is broken, so it would be a lie to go assemble it and put it back into a full, whatever, cup or whatever. And it has a name, because it's important, it has a name. It's called Chinese, which is the combination of money and China. So it's kind of China money, or fake money, or porcelain money. And usually they would use it for as a kind of fake value when the kids would play cards or gamble. They would kind of play or gamble for those items. And nowadays they are turned into jewelry. They are picked up from the ground and they are sold off to all these hundreds of tourists that come in on these cruise ships.
And Lavonne Bell, who's the co-creator of
Yeah.
the Queen Mary Monument, has done a lot of artwork where she uses Cheney in her paintings. She has also done a collection of her own porcelain with the Royal Danish Porcelain Factory. So yeah, and she had a revelation, right, because she didn't know, or she had never seen the entire collection. So she was walking in the main pedestrian street of Copenhagen and Skål one day and entered, I don't know if it's, is it Royal Porcelain?
Yeah, the Royal.
And apparently they have a museum. I haven't actually been myself.
Yeah, they have a museum.
Yeah, and then and then suddenly she saw the collections. You know, she saw the entire pieces that she had been playing with these pieces of Cheney as a child, and she was.
Yeah, she recognized the ornamentation and.
Which were narratives, of course. These
Yeah.
were also portrayals of the colonial territories of Denmark and so on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm just curious about the name. I understand it's like money and like Chinese, but